What's up, guys? Omar here, broker and CEO of Alden Mortgage and Ome Realty. So taxes are they're gonna get nuts. They're gonna be completely crazy. And the only way we get to know exactly what's going to happen is by following with people that have a shit ton of money. If you have a lot of money, that means you're wealthy, you're good. And now we gotta figure out what you're doing so we could go ahead and do it on our own end. So if you are a business owner and if you are somebody who has some sort of success when it comes to anything, you're going to want to go ahead and do a few things here to go ahead and emulate what these rich people are doing. Now, if you are a business owner, what a lot of people are doing is they are going and gifting their money. So currently under the gift and estate tax laws, you are allowed to give up to like 11 or 12 million dollars to any type of your family. And this is one way to go ahead and avoid paying any type of tax on anything because, well, if you get to give it to somebody, well, you can't get taxed on a gift now, can you? Awesome. Number two is a lot of people are saying, you know what, screw this. I am going to go ahead and move to a state with lower taxes. Now, as far as W-2 employees, which I'm assuming that most of you watching will probably be W-2 employees, if you have the luxury of actually being a remote worker where you don't have to be subject to one location, majority of people, especially like the clients that we have, a lot of the clients that we have when it comes to like mortgaging and everything like that, they're a little bit on the higher wealthier side. And I'm talking about $200,000 and above in total income. They don't have to be in an office. If they don't have to be in an office, what they're doing is they're actually just taking their primary residence and switching it over to another state, whether it's a Nevada or if it's a Texas or someplace that has a lower total tax obligation than it does in, like, let's say for instance I'm in California. In California it sucks. I'm stuck in California because I hold my real estate broker license and everything here in California, so taxes suck. There are other ways you could get around it where, you know, we get to itemize a lot of things, you know, conjunction from a LLC to an S corp. Now, I'm not going to put out a video based off of taxes because I am a mortgage broker. I look at taxes. I know a lot about taxes, but I'm not going to portray that I'm an expert in taxes. I do not have a CPA license. I don't know majority of that stuff. I let my CPA deal with most of that stuff and they dial me in. But, you know, you kind of get to know exactly, because we work with CPAs all the time. We kind of go back and forth, and in conversations that you have, you know exactly what they're doing. So if you are a remote worker, it's possibly that you should probably look as a primary residence in another location. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'm not going to tell you if you have to move or if you don't have to move. I'm not going to say any of that stuff. I'm going to say you got to make your own decision on how you're going to go ahead and do that. But when you're talking about, like, let's say you make over $200,000 and the difference between your total take-home income is going to be like $130,000 versus $170,000, $180,000, whatever it might be. I'm just throwing out random numbers out there. You're gonna kind of like, you're gonna look around and be like, what the hell? And then especially if you're in that next bracket of making between $400,000 and $600,000 a year, or in some cases if you're in the medical field and you are independent, not working for a hospital, because hospital doctors don't really make that much. But if you have your own practice where you're making over $1 million a year, you're going to want to take a look and see what you could actually potentially do to go ahead and limit your total tax liability as far as switching the base of the company somewhere else to go ahead and avoid paying some sort of tax that you don't have to pay, because taxes are so crazy. And I know I'm probably going to get a lot of heat over it, like everybody should pay their fair share of taxes, and everybody, which they should. Now, if you want everybody to pay their fair share in taxes, there has to be some sort of equal playing field across every single state. That's the only thing that I'm saying. It can't be like, oh, because we are in California that we should be paying X amount of dollars, and then if you live in Texas that you're not going to be paying the same amount as this is. If you made everybody pay the same exact amount of taxes, then we wouldn't be having this. I wouldn't be making this video, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. It's just not fair. It's not fair. So when things aren't fair, people are going to try to find ways to go ahead and get out of this not fair system that you have. It just is what it is. It's the nature of the game. If I get to keep more of my money by doing small little changes here and there, then of course that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. Big hits of places that are taking really, really big hits is New York. New York's property taxes are really, really, really huge, but there's ways to kind of get around some of these things that, should I tell you? Now, I'll think about that. I'll think about telling you about that. If I do, I'll tell you towards the end of the video. But another thing when it comes to business expenses goes is there's something that's called front loading. Front loading your total liabilities, it just means that you're going to go ahead and take a lot before increased in tax hikes. So as tax increases and income taxes increase, especially this billionaire tax that Biden is kind of putting into, and then there's this other tax that, I mean, we had a few tax hikes here and there. So when taxes get a little bit out of control, what people do is they go ahead and front load on certain parts of their total income. They'll go ahead and take a bunch in income, and then what they'll do is the following year, they'll go ahead and dump it back all into as expenses. So whenever you're doing your taxes, like you could bring in like $250,000. I just did a loan right now. A guy, he had a total income of $250,000, acquired $225,000 worth of expenses. So his total net income overall was going to be at $25,000. Now, these are things that business can do. You could not take an income. You could go ahead and just put it all in business. Now, when you're following suit, you could look at Amazon or you could look at Tesla. What they do is if you made X amount of dollars, however much you want to go ahead and say, right? X amount of dollars, you are not going to withdraw any of that money. You are not going to put it in your pockets. You could use that company expense on a card or anything like that. Give yourself a zero salary so you don't have any liability as far as any taxes go. And then you could go ahead and put that back into R&D. Research and development. Now, any business could do that. Any single business could do that. You could put it into some sort of advertisement. You could do that. Like I could potentially write off everything that I'm doing here at whatever rate that I would possibly feel like I should do. Not whatever rate I could possibly do, but like in a reasonable sense. Like if I wanted to say that this video right now is costing on average about $300 an hour, this is an expense that I could go ahead and take on because this is on the advertising side. This is an expense that the business is enduring. Now you could do that with anything. When it comes to your cars, you have your Section 179. You could go ahead and depreciate that as much as you want. There's a lot of different ways as far as taxes goes. Now I'm not going to pretend like I know everything. But whenever you look at taxes, you see exactly what a lot of people are doing. I might actually even show you, if I could find something where I could not, can I show some of my taxes? Nah, that's weird. That's kind of douchey. What am I talking about? I'm not going to go ahead and do that. But you could go ahead and front load when tax increases come around, and then you could go ahead and just take everything as far as an expense afterwards. And then if you want to, for the foregoing future, you could just use everything on tax. Like you could take your house and then use that and pay your house through your business, and then you could go ahead and use that as a main hub for your research and development, or you could use it for whatever it is. If you're working at home, you could go ahead and use that and take that house and instead of putting that house under your name, you could put it under your business name because this is a business expense. You could use it as, let's say, corporate housing, or you could use it as whatever you want to do. Now, I'm not saying you should do that and live in it and use it as a primary residence. I'm just saying that you could potentially do any one of them, whether it's an Airbnb or it's one of those things, and then you could go ahead and take on a bunch of expenses to where it shows that you are making nothing and the expenses of your company is heavily weighted on one side. So whenever you have your total income that's coming in, you're kind of like, you're not having to pay much of anything. Now, there is something else that's called stacking. Now, stacking is just pretty much like if you go ahead and take your LLC and then you stack it onto, like, let's say an S Corp. So for liability issues, you have your LLC, then you go ahead and stack it for tax purposes with an S Corp. And then from S Corp, you could go in and do it as in a trust, or you could go ahead and start a nonprofit if you want to. And then you could go ahead and stack your business model as far as you possibly want. Now, majority of big companies, they have this stacked lifestyle. They do this on a regular basis. And I mean, it's a public record. You could see it. Everybody could see it. You could go and look it up as much as you want. You could see what associations any type of business has. And this is just what they do. That's why majority of companies give so much here and there, or they give it to their foundation, or there's a Bill Gates foundation, or it's this. This is his foundation, and essentially it's just a write-off. Am I saying that they're not doing good things about whatever foundation they have? No, of course not. I'm not saying that they're not doing anything good about it, but I'm just saying it is a big tax write-off. I mean, that's not debatable. So yeah, the total deductions have decreased, taxes have increased. People are going to try to find different ways to get out of it, where you go ahead and take, and when you have the ultra wealthy, they're going to figure out ways to go ahead and get out of, let's say if you have to go ahead and potentially get out of the United States and then take expenses in one location versus another location, it just is what it is. But that's what the wealthy are doing, and that's what the rich are doing. People in New York in the finance industry, people in California where I'm from, in tech, and even the financial sector here in California, people are changing their tax residency to someplace else. And people who are business owners, whether you have a corporation, whether you have an LLC or anything like that, they're exploring different states where they could go ahead and make sure that the taxes get sent to that state that has a lower tax bracket than it would be in some of these crazier states like my crazy ass state. God damn it, it's crazy. Son of a gun. But if you like the content, please go ahead and like, subscribe, comment for up to 50% commission rebate on your next real estate purchase, 0% listing on selling your current home or any mortgage assistance. Link in the description below. Until next video, guys, I really appreciate you watching. Peace.